Guys. Hi, so we're live. Something really interesting came up. This is a pretty interesting story here. So first, this is about Corey Taylor. He's defending Lars Ulrich from Metallica. Corey Taylor is the singer of Slipknot, if you didn't know. And anyway, just to give you some background on this, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what Napster was. So Napster was like a file sharing software you could download on your computer for free many years ago. Napster, and there was a couple other ones, but Napster was the big one. I think there was another one, I forget what it was called, something with like a gummy bear or a teddy bear or something. All right, if you remember the name of some of these other ones, I think LimeWire was another one. LimeWire? I don't remember. But yeah, so there was a few of these. Napster was the big one. But here was the interesting thing. So what happened was Napster, if someone owned music or something like that, you could share the file on that. And today, they still have that going on today. There's what do they have? These torrents and stuff like that. It's similar to that, except that this was exclusively through that software. So you would have the software, and then you could just type in, a song you wanted to hear, or I guess if there was video clips, you could do that too. But video clips, I think, were really big, and back in those days, it was hard to download videos. It was next to impossible. So you had to spend a lot of time working on that. So music was the big thing anyway. So what Napster did was they would have music. People would share their music, similar to the way someone would make a cassette tape of songs they've recorded off the radio or from a CD player and then share it with their friends, right? So it was kind of like that, except you could do it with total strangers. So this was going on for a couple of years, and then what happened was Metallica filed a lawsuit against them of copyright infringement. Now, the copyright infringement lawsuit was more because a song that they hadn't released yet, even for radio play, was already being shared. It was actually being played on the radio, and they're like, we haven't even released a song. How's this getting on the radio? And what happened was someone had gotten the song and then shared it on Napster. So then it just started going around, and the radio stations started playing it. So they said that Napster was guilty of copyright infringement and racketeering, right? So they filed a lawsuit. I think it was in California, but I don't remember. I don't remember exactly where that was. I just know they filed a lawsuit against them, and a lot of people came down on Metallica for that, talking, basically saying, "Oh, they're greedy, they're so selfish, they already have lots of money. This is just another way for them to, make profits and stuff like that." And really, I mean, when I think back on it then, I kind of jumped on the bandwagon with everybody else. I mean, I loved Metallica back then, and I didn't go out of my way to defend them, but I didn't go out of my way to, argue against them. But I kind of felt like, all right, well, maybe they are being greedy. Maybe it is a little selfish. I didn't quite get the entire story because I was only being fed one side of it at the time, right? So once I really understood what was really happening behind all that, which took years for that to come out, because back then they would just tell you what they wanted you to hear, and nowadays with the internet, you have loads of information coming from both sides of a story, so you can really find out the truth by putting it together and go, okay, well, this doesn't make sense, so you get rid of that, or this doesn't add up, so you get rid of that, and say, okay, well, these kind of aligned, I can see what they're talking about. So that's one of the cool things about how the internet works today, is that it does that. Like, it allows you to decipher things depending on who you talk to, right? If you go on Facebook, they only want one side of the story to be spoken about. But anyway, besides the point was that there was some kind of, I don't remember exactly what happened with this, but I think that Metallica ended up winning the case, and I think it had to. I know that Napster had to get rid of all the copyrighted songs by Metallica. I think they had to do it for other artists as well. I'm not sure. I just know that it ended up not going out too well for Napster in the end. I think Napster actually got closed down. I don't remember exactly what happened to them, but I mean, you could find out. You could just go online and. But at the time, it was revolutionary. This was a big thing. But, Lars, I guess, saw this as like, this is something that's going to be the future. And now, look, you have Apple Music, you have Spotify. There are all kinds of streaming sites nowadays, right, that you can stream music on. Even YouTube. You could do it on YouTube. You could do it on Google. I think Google Play. Right, or no, not well. There's some kind of Google Music app you can use. So there's all kinds of stuff nowadays for streaming. Not necessarily download. If you want to download the music, you just pay like $2 and you download the song you want to hear. Boom! I have tons of songs from iTunes like that. But what was interesting was that not a lot of people really stood up for Metallica back then. People kind of talk trash about them. That was like the big thing. But recently, I'm pulling this up. I want to actually get Corey Taylor spoke out on behalf of smaller artists while declaring that Lars was right on so many levels about Napster. Okay, so like Lars and James Hetfield, they were like really criticized for this whole thing about the Napster and using their music illegally, and they kind of. But the whole thing was that they overrided a lot of Lars's valid points, right? But Corey Taylor says, he was so right on so many levels. It's scary, and I wonder how many people look back and eat a little crow because of that. Like, eat crow would mean like, you have to own up to the mistake you made, right? Which I wish a lot of people did nowadays. They don't do that nowadays. People make a mistake, they realize it, and they just deny that they ever made that mistake. It's not healthy. Okay, but it says, so Corey Taylor, he says, in this day and age, it's really hard to know which ones of the stream services actually compensate the artists that they're ripping off. It's a good point, right? It says, it's more important for me that people listen to the music. At this point, I've kind of made peace with the fact that there are various services who are just kind of screwing us. And there's a bunch of acts that he cites, the Music Modernization Act, Protecting Lawful Streaming Act is enforced, which they pass under Trump. They'll keep charging us at that rate, but I have appealed that legislation. So he's fighting his own battles right now with trying to get the streaming services to pay a fair wage for their music and for using their music. Which, that's not a lot to ask for. It's like, if you let's say you invent a software and people use it, you go, well, wait a second. I'm not getting paid for this. I spent a long time developing this, and now I'm not even getting paid to use it. It's the same thing with musicians, right? Like a musician, and you got to think like, okay, you could say, well, Corey Taylor's got lots of money. He's a very popular band. And it's like, yes, but you know what? Money doesn't just stay there forever. It takes a lot of effort to not just create money, but to continuously create money. Okay, so especially for a musician, it can get rough. Okay, so you can make a lot of money real quick, but you can't live off of that money for the rest of your life, right? So it's a matter of making sure that you do get paid for what you've created. And, something like that. Now, it can be nice. Now, don't get me wrong. Like, it could be a nice thing, writing music and then having that passive income over the years, right? It's going to help you. But you have to understand that that passive income is not large amounts of money. It's small amounts of money. So musicians they still have to play shows. They still have to tour. They have to sell merchandise. Look, I got Misfits merchandise on right now. This is actually from a show a couple of years ago with the original lineup. Pretty cool. But the idea is that, selling the merchandise, that helps the band out a little bit. All right? They don't make as much money as you think off of it. They really don't. Okay? It's kind of like supplementary. It just kind of supplements their income. It's just helping, right? Whenever their song gets played on the radio, they make a little bit of something off of that. It's not a lot of money. So when people start saying, oh, that's just being greedy, they're being greedy. Well, okay, I'm sure they like to eat too, right? Like just like you like to eat. And that's something that's misunderstood by a lot of people either non-professional musicians. I've had this before. I had a discussion with a guy I was in a band with, and I was talking about some plans and some ideas I had for the band. And he said, whoa. You're talking about our music like it's a product. I said, well, it is a product. That's what we produce. A product is what someone produces. Musicians produce the product of music. It's kind of weird thing for him to like get upset with me about, but I just never understood why he thought like music isn't a product. Like actually it is. Whether you like it or not, music is a product, okay? If you're against capitalism, too bad. It's just how it is, okay? The nature of things goes as follows. If you're a firefighter, your product is no fires, lives saved, houses stopped from being burned down, right? Safety precautions taught in homes and in schools, right? That would be like what a firefighter would do. Not only does he put out the fires, he saves lives, but he also teaches people how to be preventive against fires. So that way he doesn't have to go running out there at 2 o'clock in the morning, trying to find you in your house going, help, right? He doesn't want to have to do that. That's a horrible thing. No one wants anyone to go through that. And that's the firefighter's job, right? And same thing with the musician. The musician's job is to create music and to play music. Now, creating the music and then getting it out to the people, right? There's a lot of effort, all right? And anyone who's tried to make a career out of music will say, yeah, it's hard, man. It is hard. Yeah, it is hard to make money playing music, to get people to listen to your music, to get people to buy your music. So when you have like a streaming service like Spotify that's giving you the listeners, right? You're helping them out. Number one, right? You are helping them out, because if it wasn't for the creators, Spotify has nothing. They got nothing. They have no product of their own. Okay, so it's helping Spotify by giving them content that they can make money off of. So they make money off of it. Should they pay the people that are helping them make money? Absolutely. They should definitely do that. Now, Spotify is helping the artist by getting their name out there. Like I'm sure if you use Spotify or some kind of streaming service, I'm sure that there is some band out there that you discovered from that streaming service. Okay, you would not have known about them otherwise, and you would have been like just never known about it, and then you would have never had that experience, that musical experience. So this is like the same kind of thing here, right? It's like what they need to do is compensate the person fairly for what they're making. Now, it is hard to determine that sometimes. I know like these streaming services, they do have like trackers and stuff like that. There should be some kind of way to track, how much money a person should get for their song, right? Every time it's like streamed or whatever, I'm sure it's not going to be a lot of money. It's not. But they should at least pay it fairly, right? Because literally Spotify and all these streaming services would have nothing otherwise, nothing at all. It says, so Corey Taylor says that they've appealed this legislation, but I don't think the appeals will go through. They will raise rates, and musicians will be able to make a living off of the recordings again, right? Which... okay, fine. Now, one thing is that raising rates might turn some listeners off. Probably not. But there might be some people who go, oh, no, I'm not paying that much. No. But, if you think about it, if you're one of those people that go, oh, if they're going to start charging me $10 instead of $8, I'm canceling. Well, guess what? You're going to spend $2 more a month to help out the musicians you love listening to so much. Okay? Now, I know you're probably listening to people who have millions of dollars, right? A lot of those artists that are really big, right, have lots of money. But that money doesn't stay there forever. I give someone $1 million, it doesn't mean they're gonna be a millionaire next year. They might be worth $400,000 the next year. They could spend $600,000 and have nothing to show for it. You see this. If you ever watched lottery winners, those guys live big, and then within a couple of years, they are back to where they were before they won the lottery. All right? So musicians do not want to end up like that. They want to make that revenue. They want to have that income. They like to eat. They like to have homes. You know, it's not like these people live out in the middle of the woods somewhere and don't need anything. Or it's not like that they have $1 million so their life is set. $1 million does not set you for life. Yeah, it's nice to have $1 million, okay? But that doesn't mean that your life and your survival for the next 50, 60 years is guaranteed, right? If you're a musician, you're 30 years old, you have a good 60 years left to live. $1 million is not going to keep you alive for 60 years. So you're going to need some money, right? And of course, there's always making more money, but you should get paid fairly for what you do. So he actually pointed something else out here. He said there's a reason that Tool waited as long as they did to put the stuff up on streaming services, because they knew they weren't going to be compensated for it. That, you know, something that they worked really hard for. So pretty interesting here. You know, it's kind of funny how that Napster thing from, it was like 2000, I think, with Metallica and all the hate they got for it, really now it's being turned around going, hey, look, now, you know, there's lots of artists now that really, you know, were actually helped by that whole thing because now they're protected. You have the streaming services doing something similar now where they're not really compensating people fairly, but there is a way out for that, okay? So the legislation that was passed, like I think like 2 years ago or 3 years ago, I think that's going to help. The fact that the lawsuit that like he's doing right now against the streaming services is going to help. But, you know, you have to protect the rights of the musicians, okay? You have to protect their rights. They have a right to earn a living. You know, they write a song, you listen to that song 1,000,000 times. You buy the album, right? That's it. They don't make another penny off of that album sale. You can listen to that album 1,000 times. You're never going to make another penny off of it. But if you're using a streaming service, right, that means it's continuously being put out there for new people to hear over and over again, right? So now that they have to get compensated for, okay? So I think he was right. I think Lars Ulrich was right. I agree with Corey Taylor on this. Right? I think Lars did the right thing. He saw the future. He said, hey, look, if we don't do something about this, we're going to have a big problem in 20 years. That's 21 years later. There's issues, but it's not as bad. So thanks, Lars, for looking out for all of us professional musicians out there, all of us future professional musicians out there. And thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.